Hi there, it's Anna Orias with a teaching tip for today. You know, for those of us who've been classically trained as musicians, we definitely learned all of our scales in the major keys, and we can play those. In our sleep, we could probably play the 1, 4, 5, 7, 1 chord progression as well. But students these days are listening to pop music, and the chord progressions are slightly different. So here's a way to integrate new chord progressions into your lessons and also give the students a chance to improvise. I think improvising is really important because if the students are just on the page all day, they're not really understanding the structure or internalizing the structure of how pieces are composed and how harmonic progressions are laid out and why they make sense and why they sound good in a song. So this is something to introduce to a student who has started to make their way into full octave scales and at least understands the basic 5 first scales in the circle of fifths: the C scale, the G scale, D, E, A. And once they start and they kind of have a basic understanding of those scales, I start to introduce the concept to them of each note in the scale having a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, also referred to as scale degrees. And then the ability to build chords on those notes, of course telling them that you have to stay inside the set of keys in that scale. And the first thing I'll do is try to get them to understand that although they're always playing 8, that actually there's only 7 different letter names in a key. So for the C scale, start on C and build the notes inside C. D chord has D plus the notes that are skipping inside the scale of C, etc. I know all of you teachers know this, but this is kind of a way to frame it for the students. Then I'll ask them, if I'm in the C scale, why can't this be the D chord? And they sort of laugh. Oh, geez, there's some black keys in there. Are there any black keys in the C scale? No. Okay, so we're only going to use the notes that are the 7 notes that are in the set of the scale. Once they understand that idea, and they usually understand it really well, walking up, doing numbers in order, ascending, I'll start to have them look at it descending. So this is 1. Then I'll ask him, what's this? And a lot of students will give me that kind of face. So I'll say, this is 1, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh yeah, that's 7. Okay, so I'll say start on 1. Now go to this one. What's it called again? 7. And go down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this is the 6th chord, and I'll ask them to build a chord on that. Right, and then I'll say, can you do the 1 chord and the 6th chord? Great. And then we go down 2 more. What's this one called? Oh, right, the 4 chord. And go up 1 to the, what's it called? The 5 chord. Right, and we've got the basic heart and soul chord progression that so many of them are familiar with. I'll have them do that, not necessarily in rhythm yet, but just kind of wrap their head around it. And have them add the left hand, 1, 6, 4, 5. For students who are struggling, I'll leave out the 3rd of the chord and just give them an open fifths on the top. Right. And once they get that, I want them to play it in a rhythm. I happen to have a keyboard in here. You can just count it off or stomp or do all the things we do as musicians to keep the beat for our students. If you happen to have a keyboard or something that can give them something else to listen to, or there's so many apps on a phone, I'll give them this. And about 120 beats per minute for a student who picks things up quickly, and slower than that for students who don't. And I'm just going to ask them to play whole notes on this chord pattern. Right, and on top of that, I'm going to have them do it for 2 minutes. Now I have an iPhone, so it's easy to set the timer, and the students always like it when I talk to Siri in the lessons. Hey Siri, turn on a timer for 2 minutes. Okay, so the timer is going now. And I'll have them do the pattern for 2 full minutes. And etc. And once they're done with that, now it's time to do the improvisation. So they understand the basic notes that are there. And now I say, hey, in that 2 minutes, you probably start to get kind of bored. The students who understand that and get competent in that pattern will start to get boorish around 1 minute and really bored about 1 minute and 45 seconds into it. So, instead of just telling them that, I'll ask them, well, how did you feel? Did it ever feel like it went too long, that you were, getting bored and wanted to do something different? Usually at that point, they're itching to do something different. So I'll give them an option. Now, your examples, you probably want to tailor to the student that you have. If you have a student who's rhythmically challenged, maybe your example is, for example, or if you have a student who can hear and copy a more complex pattern like the one I played, or whatever. I would give them about 5 examples just to show them, get their brain flowing. And then the hesitant student may just do this. And you'll see right away the more advanced students, because when you give them a fancy pattern, they'll immediately play it on another keyboard, especially if you're sitting at 2 keyboards, and they'll copy and be like, wow, that's cool, and they'll be able to play it for you. So you can kind of titrate the experience level of the students, but the idea is to learn that basic chord progression and do it for an amount of time where they can not only get competent at it, but also start to get bored with it, which I find is around 2-ish minutes. If you do it for 30 seconds or something, that doesn't give them the time to get really bored. You want them to get really bored. So as soon as you've gotten that, you want to give them the idea that they're going to drill this for about 2 minutes a day on the 1, 6, 4, 5. As soon as they get competent on that, they get a few choices, because the goal for them is to do this in all the 5 keys, first 5 keys of the circle of fifths. So you wanted them to be able to be competent on this in C, and in G would be the next one, and A and E and etc. The first 5 keys. So you can say, either you can take this pattern when you get really good at it and start taking it around the circle of fifths, and maybe for the next week you're going to try it on G, and then the next week you're going to try it on D, etc. Or you can have them stick with the C chord and start to change the order of the 1, 6, 4, 5. For example, you might want them to do, what would be a good one? 1, 5, 6, 4, 1, 5, 6, 4, 1, 5, sorry, 1, 5, 6, 4, 1, 5, 6, and play with that one. You, as a teacher, to figure out how much time they spend on this, whether they get it in a lesson and you're going on to the next key in the lesson, or whether they take an entire week to do the 1, 6, 4, 5, and then next week they switch to 1, 6, 5, 4, 1, 5, 4, 6, or whatever it is, and they do that for a couple months or whatever until they move to G. That's something that you'll have to determine student by student. I use this a lot in my group piano playing. I teach group lessons on numerous keyboards. We have 4, 5, or even 6 students at a time at the school that I have, and we'll turn on we'll have some sort of a beat, turn on a drum beat, or have a live drummer playing, and everybody plays at the same time whatever pattern they want, but it's got to be 4 beats long, and it's got to be the chords that we're yelling out. Other visual aids you could use, like my students said, well, how am I supposed to remember that the C chord is C, E, G? If they need other visual aids, you can give them those, or you can just keep reiterating, every key every key signature has 7 keys, and we need to know what those sets are. And I like to try to play them like this in tetrachords and have them push down the whole scale at once so they can see, where the black keys are as a set. Sometimes I'll even put little post-it stickers on the keys, like I think I have some in my drawer here. Oh yeah, something like this. Put them on the keys. Or I have a tool that I made like this, the major scale. And you know, some kids I use solfege with, and we put these behind the keys, and they can see that each colored part is where a key is. And so, you know, there's all kinds of visual aids and references like this. But I encourage you to play around with this. Once you've got this basic chord progression down, start adding other chord progressions. There's so many pop progressions out there. One thing you can do is even look at a piece that they want to learn and figure out what the 4 main chords are for that, and drill that chord out in a bunch of different keys, bunch of different rhythms, bunch of different styles. This is a fast and easy way to get your students competent in some of these less classical chord progressions, so that they can play a lot of the music that they want and stay hooked on piano. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this teaching tip. Take care.